Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. Today is Tuesday, March 2nd. We'll begin the meeting with an invocation by Reverend Dom Jenkins, Associate Pastor at The Crossing.
Perfect. Let's pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we are just honored to be here today. God, we're just so grateful that you've given us another day. God, we are just so humbled by your presence and the ways in which you have loved and served us in these times. So, Father, now as our community of leaders come and discuss certain matters, I ask that your spiritual presence would be with them now. Father, I ask that that you would guide them. Father, your word says that if they ask for wisdom, that you will give it generously. And so now, God, we are asking you for wisdom in the decisions that they're going to be making in the future. God, we ask a special blessing over our community. We ask that you would continue to protect it, you would continue to bless it, and that you would continue to oversee it as it continues to grow and thrive. And then finally, Father, we want to ask a special request for Officer Sean and his family. God, right now, as his family is going through just so many tough times, we just ask that the people of Kernersville would continue to uplift him and his family. Father, we pray for our police officers and the great duty that they do to protect our city. And Father, we pray that Sean would continue to recover and that he would be able to go back to protecting this city. So Father, we are gracious. We are so thankful for everyone who is here today. And Father, we ask all of these things in the gracious name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Thank you. We're still live.
Thank you.
This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you. All right. So because this is a remote meeting, we will do a roll call. So basically, it's an opportunity for everyone to check their microphone and to identify everyone who is participating in the meeting, either by the GoToMeeting app or calling in. So I'll begin with the elected officials. Mayor Pro Tem Jenny Fulton.
She's present.
Let's give a moment to check her microphone. All right, I see Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, so we'll come back to her for a microphone check. Alderman Bruce Boyer.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Joe Penix.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Chris Thompson.
Present. Thank you.
Alderman Kenny Cruz.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Town Manager Curtis Swisher.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Town Attorney John Wolf.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. Present.
Thank you. Thank you. Assistant Town Attorney Ed Powell.
Present. Thank you.
Town Clerk Keith Hooker.
Present.
I see IT Director Adam Hutchins working on Ms. Fulton's microphone. So Police Chief Tim Summers.
Present.
Thank you. Kernersville Fire Rescue Chief Scott Aldermen.
Present.
Thank you. Community Development Director Jeff Hatling.
Present.
Thank you. Public Services Director Dorn Maltba.
Present.
Thank you. Finance Director Franz Ader.
He is not with us tonight.
Okay. Parks and Rec Director Ernie Pages.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Human Resources Director Crystal Tanner. Is she in the courtroom?
Present.
Oh, you're online. Okay. Thank you, Crystal. And Curtis, is there anyone that you see that I have missed?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and Chris, we do see you twice, which is fine. Just remember to only vote once.
I'm straightened out now, I think, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. John, I thought you'd like that humor.
I did, Mayor.
All right, we also have with us Adrian Rothing. Hello. I see her waving. Hi, and your microphone's working. Rachel Schroeder.
I am present.
Thank you. Kelly. Thank you. Kelly Hargett.
I'm present.
Thank you. And Dale Pennington.
Hello, present.
Thank you. And I think we've got everyone's mics working. Let me double check with Mayor Pro Tem Fulton.
Hey, Mayor, can you hear me now?
I can. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we have several public hearings. When an agenda item is denoted as a public hearing, persons attending shall be permitted to address the Board of Aldermen regarding the item under consideration, those speaking in favor speaking first, and those against speaking second. Proponents and opponents shall each be given 20 minutes of time to speak and may choose to allow one speaker to utilize that time or choose to allocate the time among different speakers. In the event that either proponents or opponents have not designated a speaker or speakers to represent that view, the mayor shall divide the 20 minutes by the number of speakers wishing to address the Board of Aldermen, and each such speaker shall be allowed that given time within which to express his or her comments, ideas, concerns, expressions, and desires. After the opponents speak, the mayor will allow the proponents 5 minutes for rebuttal. If the proponents choose to exercise this option, the opponents will also have 5 minutes for rebuttal. In the event that the proponents do not present a rebuttal, then the opponents shall be given no further time to speak. During this meeting, persons wishing to speak to the board on an agenda item, including a public comment on a public hearing matter, can call 336-996-7289. That is 336-996-7289. Callers will be recognized in the order they are received and will be transferred to the meeting when it is their turn to speak. Persons wishing to send written comments on the public hearing items can email them to khooker@toknc.com within 24 hours after the close of the public hearing. All right, so that brings us to item 1A. It's a public hearing on a text amendment. Curtis Swisher, agent for the town of Kernersville for proposed zoning text amendment to the UDO, amending the Unified Development Ordinance permitted uses table. Amendment is proposed to add residential building, townhouse to the RM18 zoning district, zoning docket KT 246, and A1 consideration of an ordinance adopting said text amendment. Mr. Hatling?
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. I will now share my screen. So as the mayor described, this is an amendment to the permitted use table. So the permitted use table on the right shows that the RM18 residential multifamily district is the only multifamily district that does not have the use residential building townhouse. The Unified Development Ordinance was first adopted in 1994, so staff is unaware of why the townhouse section was never added to RM18. The purpose of this rezoning, there's several small vacant RM18 parcels that could be potentially developed with the use residential building townhome. On the map to the right, just as illustration around the downtown area of some of these small RM18 properties. Several of those parcels offer the opportunity to provide new housing units, also would promote infill development and potential redevelopment. Recommendation by the planning board and staff is approval of the text amendment as presented in the planning board report in the agenda packet. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hatling. This is a public hearing, and I declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone present in the courtroom who has signed up to speak on this agenda item? Mr. Swisher?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Hutchins, is there anyone who has called in to speak on this agenda item?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. I declare the public hearing closed. Does the board have any questions at this time of Mr. Hatling? I'll go ahead and roll call ask. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Bruce Boyer?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Joe Penix?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Alderman Chris Thompson?
No, ma'am. I'll motion to approve.
Alderman Kenny Cruz, do you have any questions at this time?
No, ma'am, but I'll second Chris's motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Chris. I have a second by Kenny.
Madam Mayor, you cannot approve it tonight. This has
that's
to be
right.
on the agenda next month. For the next 3 items, actually.
Okay, Chris.
Sorry about that. Did it again.
A motion from the ocean.
Curtis, should we continue them one by one or just continue them all at the end?
I would just continue all of them at the end.
Okay. All right. All right. Item 2A is a public hearing. Curtis Swisher, agent for the town of Kernersville, for a proposed zoning text amendment to the UDO, amending chapters B, C, and D. Amendment addresses parcels with split jurisdictions as specified in the new state statute 160D, zoning docket KT 248. Mr. Hatling?
Mayor Morgan, if you would like, I can make a presentation on the next 4 public hearing items. They all relate to 160A to 160D amendments.
Okay. Mr. Wolf, would it be acceptable to do one public hearing to handle B, C, D, and E, or should we have separate public hearings?
Madam Mayor, I think it's certainly acceptable to hear all of them at one time.
All right. Okay, Mr. Hatling, please go ahead with a consolidated presentation. This will be for items 1B, zoning docket KT 248 that I've introduced. Item 1C, which is a proposed zoning text amendment to the UDO, amending chapters A, B, and C. Amendment addressing requirements to update any references to provisions in General Statute Chapter 160A or 153A to indicate relevant provisions in the new State Statute Chapter 160D, zoning docket KT 249. D, which is Curtis Swisher, agent for the town of Kernersville, for proposed zoning text amendment to the UDO amending Chapter B. Amendment addresses requirements to broaden conflict of interest standards for governing and advisory boards, zoning docket KT 250. And E, Curtis Swisher, agent for the town of Kernersville, for proposed zoning text amendment to the UDO, amending various sections of the UDO. Amendment is proposed in order to comply with the conditional zoning terminology requirement defined within General Statute 160D-102.7, zoning docket KT 254. All right, Mr. Hatling.
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. As described, these four agenda items under one public hearing are all related to the 160D related text amendments. In 2019, North Carolina legislators passed some significant legislation to modernize the planning and development regulations in our state statute. Multiple groups worked with that effort, State Bar Association and planners and business people and developers, just to modernize the text. So tonight we have 4 text amendments. Previously, I think this is probably our third round of text amendments, and staff will be coming back for some additional text amendments. The first one, KT 248, as the mayor described, this is an amendment where if a parcel is in 2 jurisdictions, the owner and the jurisdictions may agree for development regulations from one jurisdiction to apply to the entire parcel. Previously, there was no clear language on how to handle a parcel that was split by 2 jurisdictions. KT 249, the regulations require update of any reference provided, any reference and provisions GS Chapter 160A or 150A to indicate relevant provisions in Chapter D. Our old legislation for municipalities was 160A, 153A. 160D was municipalities, 153A was county. It's all been combined now in 160D. And so the text amendment deletes all 160A references and all 153A references and replaces it with 160D. Text amendment 250, you must adopt broadened conflict of interest standards for the governing and advisory boards. And I should also note that includes the staff. KT 251, you must align ordinance terminology with Chapter 160D terminology by deleting special use. A lot of times you'll see that S in our rezoning cases, and change it to conditional use, which is C. Around the state, jurisdictions have many different names for our special use district rezoning. The legislation consolidates all the different names and modernizes so everybody uses the same terminology. If this text amendment passes, our special use district rezoning will then be called conditional use rezoning using C versus a S. The planning board staff is recommending approval of the 4 text amendments presented tonight. Happy to answer any questions.
This is a public hearing. I declare the public hearing open. Mr. Swisher, is there anyone here who signed up and is present in the courtroom who'd like to speak to any of these 4 public hearing items?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Hutchins, is there anyone who's called in to speak to any one of these 4 public hearing items?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. I declare the public hearing closed. Without it making any motions for approval, do any of the board members have any questions for Mr. Hatling about any of these 4 text amendments at this time? Okay. All right. I would propose that, given that these are more routine in that they do not seem to generate much public comment, that we go ahead and close the public comment period sometime this week. There needs to be a minimum of 24 hours from 7:30 p.m. is the time I have. So say 7:35 tonight. But with the schedule of the town staff, I think that 5 p.m. Friday this week, March 5th, might be an appropriate deadline. And the board has indicated at the briefing meeting an interest in voting on these items at the April 6th regular meeting. If I could have a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Chris Thompson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Bruce Boyer. This will be a roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hooker, have you got the motion and you've got the vote?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and so if you could please update the website to reflect that deadline.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are moving on then to the public session. Item A is speakers from the floor. Mr. Swisher, has anyone signed up to speak from the floor?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Hutchins, has anyone called in to be a speaker from the floor?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. There are no speakers from the floor for item 2A tonight. Item B is consideration of a resolution setting the public hearing for a voluntary annexation petition by Curtis Swisher, agent for the town of Kernersville, for property located on Beeson Road across from Ivy Redmond Sports Complex at the intersection of Beeson Court, containing 13.539 acres, more or less. Mr. Swisher, do you have the presentation on this item?
Well, Madam Mayor, this is, as it says, for the annexation of property that the town purchased. It's the property that was purchased a couple of months ago. It is not currently in the town limits, so we're recommending that the town annex it into the town limits. No other property in that area will be annexed, just the property that the town owns.
Okay, thank you. Do any board members have any questions? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Bruce Boyer.
Second.
I have a second by Chris Thompson. We'll vote by roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. All right, item C is the 2020 annual reports and 2021 budget requests from Paul J. Senior Botanical Gardens, Kernersville Little Theater, Kernersville Museum, and Kerner's Folly. All of these organizations have made very important contributions to our community, and all have had to adapt given the COVID-19 pandemic this year. We are very grateful to have present with us representatives of each of these organizations to present the annual reports and the budget request. We'll begin with Paul Senior Botanical Gardens and Adrian.
Okay, can you all hear me?
We hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Morgan. Thank you, Board of Aldermen. And my screen, can we share my screen? Excellent. Thank you again. I'm Adrienne Rothling. I am the Director of Curation and Mission Delivery for Paul J. Senior Botanical Garden, also serving as current interim director. It's been quite a ride. I just want to reiterate the dream that Paul Senior had many years ago. He decided to leave an endowment upon his death that he would love to start a beautiful botanical garden in the town of Kernersville for the triad and for the residents of this beautiful city. Here he is, and unfortunately he did pass before his dream came into life, but we hope that his dream trickled down into his two sons and then certainly into his grandchildren. And then thankfully, since I've been aboard, I have certainly shared that dream into everything that I do. And so here are the grandchildren. This is 10 years ago. We are actually getting ready to celebrate 10 years. And most of you, Mayor Morgan, John, I believe Chris Thompson, were all there that day to see the ribbon cutting, and the garden officially opened its doors in April of 2011. So we're celebrating a lot this year. I don't think this was Paul's dream. It's certainly not my dream, but I could see the vision. I'm sure some of you might miss the Dairy Queen. However, Witt's Custard certainly could give them a run for their money today. And so all I can say is, Paul, the challenge has been accepted. And so we've gone from this complete eyesore and just an utter mess into something wonderful that we have today. The only way to successfully get rid of kudzu is by Bobcat. And so that Bobcat spent many a time combating all those weeds for us. And then the first thing that happened on site after the property was cleared is we put in a construction trailer. That mobile trailer was our office. John Wolf said, that trailer looks like every construction site in America. You need to put up a hanging basket. So we did, but we got a little carried away and ended up putting a whole tropical oasis around that mobile trailer. And we still have that tropical garden today. We've upgraded, we've grown. We went from falling apart Dairy Queen to a cramped mobile trailer and now into this wonderful welcome center. So just looking back, a lot of people thought we were crazy, not sure what was going on. It didn't look like any construction site you've ever seen. We decided to put in a formal garden, the pattern garden. When I arrived just as it was looking like this. There was a lot of drainage and drain tiles running through the gardens. So thank goodness that's still there, because we certainly needed all that drainage this year. This is an interesting shot. This was taken in 2011 in winter. You can see the Christmas trees are still on the poles. This is a gold leaf cypress. Here it is today. And over here in this shot, this is a shot taken that currently I'm standing underneath that cypress. So our plants have grown. A lot of people are just unaware of how much our gardens really just take shape over the years. And then, of course, one of our biggest accomplishments was our pattern garden was featured in Fine Gardening magazine back in 2011. And we are blessed to have 25,000 spring blooming bulbs just getting ready to emerge any day now. And in the summer months, we put in all these wonderful summer colors with annuals, and we pick different themes every year. You saw this photo before. This is weeds growing up all the way to the road. And if we didn't intervene, those weeds probably would have taken over SNR Motors. They would have gone under the road, over the sidewalk, and through their parking lot. I guarantee it. So we removed all those invasive species and then put in these wonderful plants. And we call this our perennial border. And this was 10 years ago, but believe it or not, in the last 10 years, the plant palette has certainly changed. So we're trying to improve our border with adding a lot more flowers and a lot more color. And the garden had received an award back in 2011, the best landscape design for commercial design. Our annual border is pretty much the same as the perennial border. It's just the opposite side of the parking lot. And we feature and showcase as many annuals as we can throughout the season. And I can tell you that this last fall, we planted a bunch of stuff and the rain pretty much just wiped it all out. So I'm sorry that our annual border doesn't look luscious right now, but it will. And of course, the patio terrace has really grown quite a bit. Love how all the plants are flanking those columns you see up against the building. And the courtyard garden certainly has filled in. But what I love about it is the plants kind of soften the brick wall and the rock walls. I really like how that accents together. And the patio terraces lend itself well to many events. I love showing these photos because it shows people how you can arrange for a wedding if you want, or you can have an outdoor tented event on the patio terrace. Going back to that parking lot, I'm standing in the parking lot looking at the buildings next door and then looking at it again today with that mosaic hedge. 9 different shrubs make up that border. 400 of those plants, however, and you can see how it looks in 2011, those little teeny tiny plants, and how much it's grown today. What this does is it's created a room for the parking lot. So the room on one side is the hedge. Of course, you got the neighbor property on the other side. You have the pattern garden, and then you have this on the other side, the ginkgo screen. These are 48 ginkgos, all planted by that man you see in there. That's Wyatt Lefevre. He planted 48 ginkgo biloba with the help of Bill Botsford 2 days before grand opening back in April of 2011. And as you can see, we've achieved quite an accomplishment with creating windows through the screen. That way you can kind of see what's in the garden on the other side. Also keeping up with the trends, not only do we try and find current plants, but we try to find current ways to showcase those plants. And one of the biggest things we see now is crevice gardens. So we had some extra rocks, we turned them up. We created a larger planting surface. We created heat and of course, lots of texture. If you haven't been to the garden, well, you've really missed out because in the last 2 years, we've had these 2 phenomenal plants in bloom. Hardy century plants typically bloom once every century. But in North Carolina, with our heat, with the amount of rain we get, maybe not this past rain, but what happens is we can get these plants to bloom, thrive, do their thing, flower, set fruit, and actually they'll die at the end of their life cycle. And here we can get them to do that in 10 years. So we've had 2 of these monsters blooming. That's an 18-foot bamboo stake that we marked every foot. And so Josh and I monitored the foot of the stalk about every week. We'd go out there and measure, and they grew at lightning speed. And then, of course, probably the best garden, the most successful garden we have is our raised kitchen garden. One of Paul Senior's gardens that he did convey before he passed away. He wanted raised beds so that children could see where vegetables have grown. And in this small space, it's only 1,000 square foot. In a small space, we've been able to donate over 5,000 pounds of produce to area food relief shelters. So what did we do in 2020 during the pandemic? Well, the world slowed down, but gardening did not, thankfully. We have no way of shutting our doors, so our gardens were able to remain open. We had lots of visitors. Did we have concerts? Absolutely not. Did we have lots of school tours? We wanted to inspire kids. We wanted them to enjoy the vegetable gardens. Nope, not at all. Not one class came. Well, there are times where we take our show on the road, and we were able to do 2 things before the pandemic started, but we did not do the seed swap. We did not do the Healthy Living Expo. We did not do a couple other things that we had in mind for 2020. Of course, Spring Folly, we didn't do Spring Folly. However, we are on board for when it's ready to go back in September. Did we provide a backdrop for your beautiful event? No, not this year. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but we did modify some things, but unfortunately we had to return a lot of deposits during the pandemic. And then of course the volunteers had their hours were cut in half. We only did about 800 hours worth of work, all continuing to do the tulips and daffodils, and then, the spectacular holiday blooms. And they're starting to come back now that the pandemic has lifted a little bit. So as a direct result, our rental income dropped. We hope to start recovering this year, and we certainly hope to recover next year. The dancing crane installation is put on hold. If you don't know, we have a pair of dancing cranes. It's a very large sculpture donated by Joseph Bryan out of Greensboro. We started raising funds to start that garden process, and we had to shut it down for 2 years. It's been sitting idle. And thank goodness we had some funding come in at the end of the year in 2020 for our annual appeal. And we managed to put that back on the calendar for this year. No staff development. We really didn't go anywhere and do anything. Josh was going to do a work study at Plant Delights Nursery in Raleigh. And then most of you know we have reduced our staff. But like I said, during the pandemic, we had a lot of visitors. We hope that we inspired people. We hope that we provided a place for reflection and to allow people to get closer to nature. We did close our Welcome Center and gift shop for about 6 weeks in the spring. They are now open with the pandemic in mind. And believe it or not, we had 3 wedding proposals in the garden last year. I witnessed 2 of them. So there's hope. Hope that we will recover, hope that people will come back, hope that we will certainly do everything we wanted to do before. While there was no events going on out on the event lawn, our mower, the gentleman who mows our property, I went out there and said, start mowing the word hope in there. And he did, and we kept it going for actually a very long time. So a couple of things we did do in 2020, we were able to install 3 new garden spaces. One of them is the Discovery Garden. This is a space for pollinators and pollinator plants, lots of native plants, lots of flowers. Those teepees Josh is building grew some pumpkins, but once the rain started hitting in August, those pumpkins rotted, unfortunately. But something else we did is to hopefully help engage people still and get children excited. We put out this mailbox in the Discovery Garden. And when you open up the mailbox, you find these pollinator and scavenger hunt. And then you find another garden hunt where you look for plants that are purple flowers, purple leaves, all kinds of different things. And those will go back once the growing season starts back up again. And then, of course, I created these word searches, and every week is a different theme: plant related, garden related, outdoors related. Couple more garden spaces we created is the conifer and woody plant collection. This is just beyond that. Mosaic hedge is up here, so it's just beyond that. And so we've created this kind of a mini arboretum, if you will, with a lot of the trees and shrubs that we've been collecting over the years. And we're getting ready to plant a little meadow down here. So now then, when you come out to the garden, you'll do this little central path, and you'll actually see a lot more garden spaces. We decided to take our plant sales and turn them into a virtual event, and we did really well. We took pre-orders, and all the plants were ready for pickup on Fridays, and people just rolled their cars around. They didn't even get out of their cars. We loaded it up, and they went on their way, and we're going to do that again for the spring. We also noticed that the stay-at-home orders allowed people to improve their homes while they were staying there, so that was a big plus. And of course, we so appreciate everything that we do for the community and the community does for us. We were chosen as the Business of the Month for the month of May. We also are, Josh and I lead the Leadership Kernersville class, and we lead them on a historic tour of Kernersville. And actually, I invite you all to come and do that tour with us, because we really like how it's evolved, and it's been a really great experience. And then, of course, anytime the emergency services come with their vehicles at the garden, I'm out there with my cameras taking photos just to see what those what that truck looks like with the backdrop of ginkgos in the Welcome Center. And going on with the community, Josh and I did a lot out there. He flipped pancakes with Trey, and we did a wreath making workshop. We were out there with Trick or Treat, and we would just wanted to help out any way we can. So I mentioned how we had donated 5,000 pounds of produce over the years, but this past year alone in 2020, I guess since we didn't have a lot of children coming sampling fruits and vegetables, we were able to harvest all that and donate it. We noticed that Ellen with the food truck was going around feeding meals, providing meals for those in need. And so we gave her a lot of stuff over the years. We must have given, over the last few months, must have given her like 300 pounds alone. Hope, Help Our People Eat received a huge chunk, and then, of course, the Salvation Army. And while the building was closed for events, one thing that we were allowed were the Red Cross. The American Red Cross did their blood drives as a emergency service type of atmosphere. We were able to allow that. And in 2020, we had 500 attendees and who donated 525 pints of blood. And they're still going on today. And towards the end of the season, when Governor did lift a few more orders and restrictions, the Kernersville Little Theater came out and did their performances. They had 6 performances, about 50 to 80 people per night. And I absolutely love this shot. Rachel remembers this. We went out there, I think it was threatening rain most of the day. And I think about 6 o'clock, the rain lifted and this happened. And it almost looks like that rainbow was shining on the stage down there. And then, of course, the Main Street United Methodist Church held their church services in the event lawn too. A couple other things we did. We had a photographer come and teach classes, and she said, with people being isolated due to COVID-19, I truly believe getting folks outdoors in nature and in garden safely has really helped overall, not to mention learning a new skill. And so we're glad to have her back for 2021. You might remember this. I think this was mentioned the last time, but as the pandemic continued, we wanted to showcase things that also continued. And we had Graham Senior there helping out build a wall around the Japanese garden. When you think of walls and rooms in the Japanese garden, you block the noise or you create inviting noise. And so we don't have anything to invite right now. So we're blocking the street noise. And of course, being out in that back corner, you don't really hear anything. Some of you know this, Karen Senior passed away. And when the Japanese garden vignette is complete, the garden will be named in her memory. One of the last things we did we were involved in the Kernersville, Kerner's Folly, the Decorate for Christmas, and I'm going to brag, but we did finally receive first place for the theater. We made it in Winter Wonderland, and I really thought for sure that would be the easiest room because I thought it would be simple. We just put snow everywhere, and it turned out to be one of the toughest rooms, but certainly the rewards paid off. And we are so honored to be a part of that, and we will be back again. We continue our wonderful relationship with the media. Shannon Smith with Fox 8 actually has my cell phone now. So she just calls or texts me when she's ready to come out, or I'll do the same. I've been writing articles for Yadkin Valley Magazine, which then turns around and it promotes the town of Kernersville and some of the other surrounding things. In fact, Yadkin Valley Magazine wants myself, Dale, and Kelly to do a feature for Christmas next year. I have been writing for Martha Stewart Living, her online blog. We have relationship with O. Henry Magazine. And we are one of the sponsors for the photo of the week with WFDD, and we've certainly submitted a lot of photos, and several of my photos have been chosen the photo of the week. So we're proud to be that sponsor. Jim Longworth with Triad Today has been airing his show at the Garden since last April, so almost a complete year. Chad Tucker with Roy's Folks came out and did a feature with us, and then of course, just the icing on the cake was when Carl White came out with Life and did his feature for Life in the Carolinas. So here's Triad Today. When the weather was warm, he was outside. He moved inside into our foyer. And I have to admit, I do like decorating the foyer for his TV show. I always hide something in the back, so you'll have to watch to see what I hide next. He said he's thankful for what we had done to provide to him so that he can still continue on with his show. And he has brought over 500 guests all over the state to come and view the gardens, of course. And then he has wonderful feedback from the community, and he's just very happy that he's been a part of us. This is me. I'm showing him bugs in that green bin are bugs. So we had a good day. Here's Chad Tucker showing off our volunteers making the Christmas display. So like I said, they came back towards the end and we provided some safe distancing. And actually one of them had tested positive for COVID days after they showed up here. But since we were wearing masks, nobody contracted it. So we were really good. We were really safe. Spectrum News came out and did a feature for us too. And then of course, when you do a show with Carl, you're like best friends in the very beginning. I mean, I hadn't met this man before, but in the first 10 minutes of talking to him, we were best friends. To actually get out and make him laugh was just amazing. And we have to thank Jenny for that opportunity. We couldn't have had such a warm response without her. So thank you, Jenny, for that. And thank you, Carl. So I mentioned how the Dancing Crane projects is back on for 2021. We hope to see some in construction going on next month. Actually, this month, it's March 2nd. We're hoping for drier weather so we can start breaking ground and get that sculpture in the garden. And we certainly hope to see you in the spring for our 25,000 bulbs for the spectacular tulip bloom. And now that we've started that holiday bloom, it's not going to stop. So we're just going to keep on going. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor Morgan. Thank you, Board of Aldermen. And I'm happy to entertain any questions at this time.
Thank you for your presentation. A lot was blooming in the garden this year.
Yes.
Does the board have any questions?
I'll have one question. By the way, I think you've done a wonderful job in adjusting to the pandemic era that we're currently living in and hoping to be out of. I know rental income was a big piece in your budget, $100,000 piece in your budget.
Yes.
But the year ended in, mid-March. And I know you budgeted conservatively $30,000 for 2021. When do you think you'll start having rental groups? And I think I had a couple of wedding receptions I was supposed to attend there, looking forward to in the near future. But how have you sort of planned when you'll be able to have groups like that inside?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Boyer. We certainly do hope to have more events. We have created some smaller, intimate packages, especially for the patio terrace, and so we have booked a lot of those so far. But we do see an increase in weddings and larger crowds towards the fall, and we hope that they'll continue. We hope with everybody getting their vaccine, we should be able to see an end to this and have 150 people back in that ballroom. And I did budget on the low end because I saw the big drop in 2020, and I came into the garden with that in mind, and I did not see a light at the end of the tunnel, so I budgeted low on purpose. Because looking at we book weddings a year in advance, and we just did not have that this year. So when I budgeted, I only budgeted for just like a handful of weddings and a lot of smaller dollar items, those intimate packages, which is not enough to cover our income, but it's going to keep us afloat.
And thank you for stepping up as the interim director.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer.
Alderman Penix, do you have any questions or comments?
My mic was off. I do have some comments. I want to commend Adrian and all of her staff and volunteers for continuing to do great work during this pandemic. Hopefully we're on a downturn now from the pandemic, and will be on an upturn for our garden and other nonprofits. But Adrian, thank you so much for all you've done in keeping spirits high at the garden. What a wonderful asset to have in our town. It's just a miracle to see the difference in the last 10 years down there.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Penix.
Thank you.
Alderman Thompson, do you have any questions or comments?
Just a great job, Adrian and staff. Right in the middle of town, to ride by this, but sometimes we've had it last year. Take a look and see what's going on in the garden. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz, do you have any questions or comments?
I've just got some comments. I'd like to congratulate them for all their work and for the way they approached the community and, in fact, the whole country to bring people to Kernersville so they could see the beautiful garden and they could experience life in Kernersville as I so much have enjoyed in my lifetime. And I thank you for your hard work and hope you can continue and see things grow.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, do you have any questions or comments?
I just have a quick question for Adrian. I'm just gonna echo everybody's comments. You've done a remarkable job, and thank you. Were you able to get PPP? I believe that was one of my questions. Will you just elaborate on that?
Yes, you can hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We were able to get PPP money, and unfortunately, David Senior would know a little bit more since he is our treasurer of our board, but from what I gather, there's some restrictions to it, and so the way it's set up, we haven't been able to utilize all that, and I want to say that it had a really high interest rate as well, but I'm really not 100% sure on that, but I know that we haven't been able to apply that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad I asked. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought the Christmas decorations, the new styles of flowers that you and the volunteers did this year were spectacular. The stalks of blooms, if you go down the steps and around to the fountain, were just spectacular. And some of the new additions, my family really, really enjoyed seeing. So we appreciate all that you've done, the volunteers, in this challenging year to beautify our community. So thank you.
Thank you,
we will
Mayor.
move on.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on then to Kernersville Little Theater. And I see we have Rachel Schroeder.
Yes, and I want to make sure, since I was having mic issues, that everybody can hear me before I...
We can hear you beautifully.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, I want to start out by saying, the famous choreographer Debbie Allen has a quote that reads, "But out of limitation comes creativity." And that has certainly been the case for our cheekily named 2020-21 season, which we called Adaptability. Like many other organizations, Kernersville Little Theater has had to adapt to meet the needs of our community. We were more fortunate than others, in that our last indoor stage show just happened to wrap. It was Blithe Spirit, happened to wrap on March 8th, 2020. So we were able to complete that show and had not yet embarked on our next show, which would have been our big June musical. So that avoided us having to spend a lot out of our budget and then not be able to do the show. And it put us in a much better situation than many of our community theater peers. So as we awaited the stay-at-home orders and our next steps as an organization, Kernersville Little Theater didn't sit still. The arts organizations were scrappy. We're used to having to kind of advocate. And so we had the opportunity through a matching donor to embark on a campaign to create an endowment for KLT. And so from April through August, we raised funds, and with a matching donor, we're able to create a small endowment for our organization, which then created the next level of financial support for KLT. Over the summer, as we awaited word on our venue, we started to formulate a plan on how we could continue to safely and responsibly operate, start our season, support the community. We knew that it had to be outdoor. We knew that we had to have a space where we could socially distance. We wanted to maintain protocols. Of course, we wanted to make these protocols as non-dystopian as possible. By that time, even back in late summer, early fall, I think we were already growing fatigued. And so with the help of Scott and Katie Jo Eisenhower and Crossroads Playhouse, the Paul J. Senior Botanical Gardens, and the Kernersville Museum, we created a partnership to open our season with a show that would be a gift for the community. Everyone involved knew the stakes. COVID was unpredictable. We could rehearse for 6 weeks, put time and effort in, and the show could be called off. We knew we may only be able to perform for 25 audience members per night. We knew that we could lose nights to weather. Still, we went on. We were able to produce Scott Eisenhower's show, The Service at Rocky Bluff, for a preview audience September 23rd and regular audience September 24th and 26th, only losing Friday, September 25th to rain. On Thursday, September 24th, it did start to rain. We had an audience who stayed as it began raining, cheering us through the curtain call, at which point it began to pour. And this was just a unified team commitment from all of the volunteers who produced this show to the audience members who came. It was about more than staging entertainment. It was about finding a way to move forward when so many other things had halted. We did follow up with the second show in October, The Kitchen Witches. One of the social distancing, things that we employed to make things a little less serious and a little more fun, we got 6-inch inflatable pool noodles. And for scientific purposes, if anyone needs to know, a 3-foot standard hula hoop, if you put 2 of those together, that also creates 6 feet. So we had some fun with our audiences with that. As you heard Adrian mention, we had Mother Nature put on a glorious spectacular for us one evening of the show with rainbow, the sunset, the bright red in the clouds, and Adrian and I looked at each other and said, we must be doing something right. If I could have bottled the energy in those audiences those nights, at that point, a week before we were to open, the executive orders relaxed a little bit and we were able to increase to a minimum or a minimum maximum. We could only have 100 people, but it was more than the 50. So we were able to have a little bit bigger audiences, but still all that beautiful green garden space. People were able to sit safely apart from one another. The community was ready to be experiencing a shared event together. More tough decisions, of course, as we went through the fall and winter, as COVID and restrictions worsened, we did have to let go of our originally slated Bring a Book to Life show, which was Sherlock Holmes and the Baker Street Irregulars. That didn't stop our resolve, and we adapted. As we said in our first season announcement, we expected at some point during the season we would have to punt. So our next regular season show will be called Eleemosynary. Bonus points. If in any of your questions, you can spell that. And we will be back at the Botanical Gardens April 15th through 17th. Now, Bring a Book to Life is going to look different this season. But as you know, this is a project that's near and dear to our heart. We had already, normally it happens in fall. So fall of 2019, we were able to do Treasure Island, was the last indoor staged book and show opportunity. So we moved it to the spring. It normally would have happened in fall of 2020. But this year, the importance of bringing that small piece of joy to the students at Kernersville Elementary is crucial. In the book, as the mother of 2 school-age children myself, I can tell you that anything that is a departure from the norm brings a little bit of joy to their day-to-day routine. Since there was no longer a specific show, we reached out to the school. We reached out to Bookmarks, who is our provider for the books that we order. And we collectively decided on an outer space theme. That is all the rage with students this year, is what we're hearing between the Mars landing and different things that have come about on the news. So we took it a step further. Normally, we kind of have books, maybe 2 to 3 books that are age appropriate. Each grade this year will have an age appropriate space themed book. We are also working to stream or video or provide some sort of opportunity, multimedia opportunity into the classroom in late April. And we have a subcommittee who is working on that now. We are currently still slated to perform Bright Star. That was our 2020 canceled musical in June. But we know school restrictions are still there, which impacts our ability to perform at the James Fitzpatrick Auditorium. And so we're once again ready to adapt based on what cards we are dealt. I'm glad to be here tonight, and I'm glad to be saying that for 43 years, KLT has been bringing opportunities to those in our community. We've been like the little engine that could, not always the largest or the splashiest, but always consistent and always knowing that our community was at the heart of what we do and who we are. And for 43 years, we've successfully adapted to a variety of rehearsal and performance spaces. I've heard crazy stories about some of the places that KLT has performed over the years. And as the pandemic ends, we have been approached with some opportunities, and we'll be spending a lot of time strategizing about space and the potential of a permanent home. And we will probably be seeking guidance and counsel from you all as we embark on that journey. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation. Does the board have any questions?
Not a question, but as a grandparent, Rachel, of a couple little ones, anything to do with the theater and letting them see things in action and having books in their hand is great. So thank you for making the adaptations to the Bring a Book to Life.
Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, do you have any questions or comments?
Rachel, I was trying to write down your next show. It's April 15th through the 17th. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And thank you. It has been a rough time on everybody. So I love the little engine that could. So keep it up.
Alderman Joe Penix.
I want to applaud you for all you do for our community. And you weren't alone through this pandemic. We were thinking about all our nonprofits, and we were all in the same boat. Broadway even closed. So for the first time ever. So you kept everything together, and I think that's wonderful. We can't wait for the next season.
Thank you.
Alderman Thompson. You're a little difficult to hear, Chris. Is there anything you said you'd like to repeat? I'm not sure everybody could hear what you said.
He just said thank you and to move on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Swisher. Alderman Cruz?
I just like to thank her, and our grandyoungins and our children really need our help with all this school closing. And I just think that's terrible, and I appreciate everything you do to keep working with them and to teach them and to learn them that they can do things and that they can amount to something and to make a good impression by the way they act and what they learn. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel, and to all the volunteers with Kernersville Little Theater.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is the Kernersville Museum, and we have Kelly Hargett.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So hello, and I want to thank the Board of Aldermen for allowing us to present tonight. 2020 saw a lot of major changes at the Kernersville Museum. We started out really strong with hopes of being able to organize the town's 250th birthday party in 2021. We were planning to celebrate the grand opening of the historic village and then bring it all home with a great holiday season experience. But halfway through March, many of our plans were put on hold. The next weeks and months were an eye-opening experience for all of us, but we continued to work. In an effort to meet the public at home, we began expanding our digital exhibits as well as our digital archives. We continue to keep up contact with the public through our social media content, as well as through our monthly newsletter and our monthly book club, which switched gears and met via Zoom. And then when the weather was really good, we would meet outdoors at the museum. So that was kind of nice because we could socially distance there. As summer drug on, we worried about our inabilities to fundraise. Individual donations continued to come in throughout the summer, but we missed our major spring and summer fundraising events. Meanwhile, work on the historic village, the restoration of the wing cabin and stable continued. Taking advantage of our odd situation, we were able to begin to move forward with our work at 109 South Cherry Street, or the Morris House as we like to call it, with the help of a generous grant from the Lawrence and Etta Pope Foundation. Restoration work began with removing the old vinyl siding, replacing the broken windows, repairing the original wooden siding and window frames, and then giving everything a fresh coat of paint on the exterior. That work, along with the new roof provided by the town, made a huge difference to the property at 109 South Cherry Street. Our future plans for that property are to prepare a plan for the redesign of the interior of the space to allow for a more functional use of the museum, including a community education space and our collections. I don't know if I can share my screen or not. I had sent some pictures. I'm not sure if you all got them or not. But by the fall, restoration work on the wing and cabin and the stable was complete, and the museum was able to open to the public on a limited basis. The museum turned, at that point in time, we turned our focus on our fall and winter fundraising plans. We were able to alter our annual chicken stew fundraiser and make it a drive-through event. We were pleasantly surprised to find out that not only did we sell more tickets than ever before, for the first time we actually had to turn people away because we actually sold out of chicken stew. That has never happened to us. Each year we hear that the chicken stew is the best ever and even better than last year. And it's a tradition that we were very happy to continue even in this adapted form. As Christmas time rolled around, we were excited about our plans for the holiday. Luckily for us, our holiday plans allowed us to maintain a socially distanced and fun event. Back during the spring, we began planning for a new holiday experience. And by summer, we were sure that Christmas at the museum was going to be a special event. Our hometown Christmas village grew into a Hallmark movie-esque experience. We brought in 15 live Christmas trees and placed them throughout the village. Trees were adopted by local groups, businesses, families, and community groups, and they decorated each tree in their own unique way. With a vintage truck decorated for Christmas sitting in front of the museum, lights were strung overhead out back, and the addition of a wish tree on our campus, the museum actually turned into a very magical place. We delighted in watching our community come out and explore our campus and our historical village during the holiday season. We averaged more than 60 people per day wandering through just our campus alone out back. The beautiful setting helped to almost double our ice rink ticket sales from the previous year. So we were really excited about that. We are very proud of what we were able to bring to downtown Kernersville during the 2020 holiday season, and we are very thankful to Alderman Fulton for including the museum in the Carl White Life in the Carolina Christmas Special and allowing us to show off all of our hard work this year. We are also very thankful to the town of Kernersville for the new roof that was added to the Bellamy House in the fall of 2020, as well as the new roof that was added to the Morris House. Where once there was a forgettable corner in downtown Kernersville, we are now a proud part of the heart of downtown Kernersville, a beautiful and neat place that draws visitors as well as citizens to our downtown area. We are pleased to offer so much to our citizens, and we hope to continue to offer a quality experience to the people of Kernersville. We are also very proud of our community partners and our ability to help other nonprofits in downtown, whether it's offering rehearsal space for the Kernersville Little Theater, and they were able to use our depot to socially distance and rehearse for their play, or a meeting space for Crossroads Playhouse Board of Directors. We're always happy to help out fellow nonprofits. Last year, even with the pandemic, we had at least 8 community partner events at the museum. We look forward to more than doubling that number in 2021. We can't thank the town enough for all the support they have given us. And even though it was a hard year for us, it was also a very successful year at the museum. So we would like to thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Kelly?
Kelly, this is Bruce Boyer. I see the list of 8 partnerships that you did, and they're really remarkable. And I see that you're planning to have many more, maybe as many as 20 next year. What are some of the new things that you're looking at, if it can be publicly said, as to what your plans are for additional partnerships?
Some of the ones that we have done, we've always started with the chamber. We took part in their date night, which was incredibly successful. And we were super happy to be able to be involved in that. So that was one of the new events. Of course, we always do the chicken stew. We do downtown, Christmas around downtown. The Yuletide event that Dale Pennington coordinates between us and the garden is a great event downtown. We are hoping to be able to help with the chamber if they have some new events once we can start having events again. And I don't really want to say all their events because I don't know if they're going to be able to have them, but we have a lot of things ready to go as soon as we get the word that we can start doing events again.
And I may have missed this, but the celebration of the town's 250th anniversary, isn't there something different coming up than what was originally planned?
So we had originally planned for that event to be in March of this year, but we had talked to the mayor about postponing it till maybe late summer, early fall, until everybody is vaccinated. We felt like our key population that would want to come to that event would be in a vulnerable state in March 2021, and we didn't think they would enjoy a virtual event. So we can have a year-long birthday celebration and just push out the party until we are sure that the governor's going to let us actually have events and let us gather again and not drop restrictions back on us quickly. So we're hoping, yeah.
Thanks.
Alderman Penix?
Kelly, I want to thank you for the hard work you put in up there at the museum. I think the work y'all did with the weaning cabin and the village before Christmas was remarkable. And the good thing about all of that is it not only made people more aware of the museum, it made people more aware of our downtown and created a buzz going around Kernersville for Christmas. And thank you so much for making that happen.
Thank you. We really enjoyed it. So it was a lot of fun for us too.
Alderman Thompson, do you have anything?
I think Joe sums everything up. It's kind of tough to go behind him every single time, but great job, Kelly, and for everything that you guys are doing over at the museum.
Alderman Cruz?
I'd like to thank you for all your hard work too and bringing it out for our youth to be able to see this. It's exciting to them, but it's taking me back to my youth. I worked with my Uncle Odell at the service station on the corner, and I was there for the Bellamy's fence where I rode my first motorcycle through the fence and didn't hear any static about it. And the Crutchfields that did own the property that later became the Morrises. And so I remember all that well. And standing on that corner, I know that was the coldest corner I've ever seen. And my Uncle Odell said there wasn't anything between us and the North Pole but that one telephone pole. So thank you for keeping the history up, and I hope our youth will enjoy it, and it makes me feel young again when I go by. So again, thank you for your work, and I hope it continues to grow.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Fulton.
Hey, Kelly, I will agree. Downtown Kernersville for Christmas was just spectacular this year. And thanks to your hometown Christmas, it was beautiful. The only question I have, and thank you for answering questions earlier from the briefing, I got those, so thank you for that, is we had talked briefly or in passing about the time capsule. Are you going to save that to the fall?
Well, I don't know if the time capsule is ours to open. That was one question we did have. We don't know if it's ours to open or the town's to open. So if the town says, hey, we're going to open it in March, we'll be there and do everything that we can to help. If the town says, let's wait and we'll all open it together when we can celebrate together, whichever makes everybody happy. But we have people calling and asking all the time, are you going to open it? What's in it? So
well, maybe we should ask our attorney or our mayor. What do you think, Mayor?
I thought that was going to be part of the the birthday celebration was opening the time capsule. So
all together.
Yeah.
So is the capsule to the museum or to the town? Or both? Curtis?
We can talk to Kelly, we can talk about it tomorrow.
The capsule is to the town. When the capsule was put in the ground, the museum did not exist, so it was put in the ground as part of the celebration back in, I guess, 1971 is when it was, I think, put in the ground. But it can certainly be delayed opening until a later point in time to coordinate with the celebration that they're planning. I don't know that there is a requirement to open it in March. John would probably know that much better than I would.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we can get you some answers tomorrow, Kelly, for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much.
I think that was probably a pointed question by our town manager. Since he was barely born then, I don't think there's any requirement to open it. It was just set to be opened as of this year. And I think it can certainly be delayed under the circumstances by this board. And Curtis is correct. It's the town of Kernersville that is to be the quote recipient unquote of unveiling in this year. And I think it warrants additional discussion by the chamber and the museum and the town as a whole. And then this board make a decision as to what to do in the future.
I think it is likely that as part of the year-long celebration, given that as an outdoor activity, we could look to early summer to open it as maybe part of the kickoff to the celebrations. But the original plan, of course, had been to open it in connection with the anniversary celebration.
That's what we hoped. But, it's worrisome for folks who may not be able to stream it. They would be super disappointed if they didn't get the excitement of seeing it open. So,
with the planning timeframes that are needed, do you think maybe around June we might be able to look at June?
I saw where the governor said today that everybody, not the governor, I'm sorry, the president said today that everybody would be vaccinated or have vaccinations available to them by May. So I guess it would just depend on how the governor releases us to be able to interact.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate all you've been doing this year and to your volunteers and board as well.
Thank you.
All right, excellent presentations. Chris, be ready. I'm going to call on you first for comments after this one. All right, next is Kernersville, and we have Dale Pennington.
All right, I have can everybody hear me?
Perfectly.
Yeah, okay. I have a presentation that I believe Jeff was going to share, or if somebody wants to turn on screen share, I can do it, either one. All right, good. And Jeff, if you'll just start it at the beginning. Perfect. Okay, so I am Dale Pennington, Executive Director of Kernersville. And on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Kernersville Foundation, I first wanted to express my appreciation for your support. Town support has been essential in preserving this treasured piece of Kernersville history. As you've heard tonight, and as you all know, 2020 has been an extraordinarily difficult year for us, as it was for so many other businesses and organizations in Kernersville and around the world. Per the governor's executive orders, we were closed for 6 months. If you'll change to the next slide, please. We were closed from March to September 2020. And since September, we were able to reopen at 50% capacity. From our annual report, the board was able to see the staggering toll that the pandemic took on our tour income, events, programs, and gift shop. But like many of our partner organizations in town, the Folly did not hibernate during this time. Instead, we looked to ways of continuing to innovate, just as Joel Kerner did throughout his lifetime, and for ways to stay connected to the community, even though our doors were shuttered. So being a small organization, we were really able to do a lot of experimentation and to be really nimble in 3 major ways that helped us stay afloat during the pandemic. If you'll change the next slide, please. The first major area was we took this time and underwent some new branding. So this is the Kernersville's brand new logo, and there is a historic color palette that accompanies this as well. And if you'll go to the next slide, we also, in July, launched a brand new website, kernersville.org. The entire website was completely redesigned to more easily share the stories of this incredible house. If you've not done so, I would encourage all of you to go take a look at it. And then if you'll go to the next slide, we also underwent some major restoration projects. We completed 3 projects in 2020. The master bedroom, the north entrance and stairway, and the breakfast room. Don't slow down there. These projects really represent the most ambitious undertaking that we have done to date. So if you want to flip to the next slide, this is a before and after of the master bedroom restoration. The red color scheme on the left is before, and the pink color scheme that you can see is the after. If you'll flip to the next one. Then the north entrance and stairway, this rises all 3 levels of Kernersville. So the before is on the left, the after is on the right. These were incredibly difficult projects and were really a silver lining at being closed during this time to be able to do these. If you want to go to the next slide. Then the third major area that we were able to innovate was with virtual programming. So thanks to several grant opportunities and the increased capabilities of our new website, plus the generosity of our donors, we were able to create a variety of virtual programs. You want to go to the next slide, please. So first, we created an online resource catalog, and this was full of free at-home activities, and this was thanks to a grant from the Winston-Salem Foundation. From our website, anyone can access these fun activities for all ages. There's things like historical crafts, coloring pages, like you can see here, collections close-up, vintage recipes, a whole variety of activities for families. Next slide, please. We then began experimenting with virtual exhibits covering a variety of topics about the Kerner family and Kernersville's history. To date, we've created 6 virtual exhibits. And even though once we opened, these virtual exhibits have remained really, really popular. So we've continued to do them, especially because not all of our visitors are comfortable touring yet. So these have been a good way to really delve deeper into the Victorian era and the Kerner family history. And our latest virtual exhibit, which is about the World's Fairs, will actually be debuting tomorrow. So check out our website tomorrow for our latest virtual exhibit. And then next slide, please. All right. And then lastly, because we canceled nearly all of our field trips, Girl Scout Day, Homeschool Day, Family Fun Day programs, we developed an at-home field trip for families called the Victorian Time Traveler. This program was funded by the North Carolina Humanities Council. This is a curriculum-based, multidisciplinary program that highlights each of the areas of STEM. So it's science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, all through the lens of history. So like the image down here, the little boys are watching rock candy grow. That was their science activity, which is also a historic activity to do. And then in the middle, there's a math activity about calculating historic recipes, doing fractions. So it was just a really innovative way of tying in just a multidisciplinary curriculum approach. And we were recently nominated for an award of recognition for this program by the North Carolina Museums Council for its unique qualities. Next slide, please. Throughout our closure and beyond, we have really focused our marketing efforts on staying connected to our visitors and our community. So we continue to maintain high levels of social media engagement. And for our visitors offline, we created a new printed newsletter called the Kerner Quarterly. There's some images of it there in the top left. Once we were able to reopen this fall, we also continued to partner with the other local attractions, as you've heard previously this evening, such as the Kernersville Museum and the Botanical Garden, as well as the downtown businesses. And looking ahead to 2021, 2022, if you want to go to the next slide, we are cautiously optimistic. So we're projecting a slow return to normal. We've been keeping an eye on all the national data for the arts industry and the tourism industries. And most are projecting right now that we won't return to pre-pandemic 2019 levels until 2022. So this year, we have planned a combination of virtual and small in-person programs and events through the spring and early summer. And then looking to the fall, are hoping to gradually increase capacities as the health guidelines dictate. We've also been very fortunate this year that our capital campaign effort has remained strong throughout 2020 by the major efforts of our board of directors and volunteers, generosity from private individuals, grant foundations in Forsyth County. To date, we have raised approximately $630,000 towards our town match, meaning we have about $120,000 to go. So we look forward to continuing to update the board and town manager on our progress throughout this year. So to conclude, Kernersville would not be in the shape we are today without the town's support. And for that, we are especially grateful. So we thank each of you. And at this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So the first questions and comments need to be from Chris.
Well, thank you. You're so kind. Good job, Dale. It's amazing how much you've thought outside the box with incorporating all the virtual exhibits. I think that's amazing. It's really neat to see. and with the restoration, if nobody's been over there to see the north end stairwell as well as the master bedroom, it's a sight to see. It's amazing the condition it went from to what it is now. So good job on all that. I think Dale's becoming slowly a restoration contractor, whether she likes it or not. She's doing a great job. And just a quick note, I don't know if anyone's heard, but the Triad Business Journal has named Dale in the 40 under 40 leader group that just came out in the last day or two. So congratulations with that, Dale.
Thank you.
Good job with what you're doing at the Folly.
That's wonderful news. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a real honor.
All right. I think Chris has said it all for all of us. No, I'm just kidding. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton.
Yeah, I would just like to say you've done an incredible job. Christmas at the Folly was beautiful this year, and I think you're working close with Bat Rabbit, which is a local company, and I just want to say thank you for that because I think he does amazing work. And I believe it's your 10th anniversary with the Folly, right?
Yes, later this year will be my 10-year anniversary with the Folly. That's correct.
Well, thank you for all you do, Dale. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. It's my honor. It's my pleasure. And we do try, just as a note, we try to use local contractors as much as possible to complete all the restoration work, like Fat Rabbit that Jenny mentioned, as well as other companies. We try to look local first.
Alderman Boyer.
First of all, I really enjoyed looking at your virtual exhibits that you have posted, and those are really exceptional. On the page 2, you show measurement of activities, growth of tour income, programs and events, gift shop revenue. This year you show as a negative because it's obviously during the pandemic. Next year you show some positives, 10, 15, 20% increase. Is that comparing to the last year that we had the whole year of available, probably 2019? Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it sounds like you're optimistic that you'll actually be ahead of the industry in terms of regaining your income and participation in events. Is that correct?
We're hoping so. So a lot of the national data that they're looking at is based on organizations that are still closed. Like, for example, locally, Old Salem has been closed for almost an entire year now. And when you look at some of these larger organizations, it's a lot more to restart the engine, if you will. And so we're hopeful that the Kernersville community will continue to support the Folly, have a great turnout for events like Oktoberfest and Christmas next year. So we're projecting, we're trying to be optimistic. Yes.
Okay. Well, great job. Thank you, Dale.
Alderman Penix.
Dale, I too would like to thank you for all your hard work. I can't believe it's been 10 years, but time really flies. But you've done wonderful work in that short period of time, and we really appreciate it. The Folly looks the best it has ever looked. Kernersville is still known for Kerner's Folly. We hope someday it'll be the other way around too. So, but thank you. If some of y'all could have seen the Folly in the 50s when I was a child, living in that area, and we would walk up to Mr. Philip Kerner's house and ask for a key to go in and play hide and seek, and he would let us go in when it was vacant. To see the difference today, it's so dramatic, it's just unbelievable. And everything is just done to the nth degree. So thank you for your foresight and overseeing all of that. You've done a wonderful job.
Mr. Cruz?
Yes, I'd like to thank you for all the hard work you've done too. And to see this beautiful facility that we're so proud of. And it's good for me to see something that's older than I am and that I've been through when I was a child and growing up and hadn't destroyed it like I have so much of the places I have been. So you've did a great job there, and I love the Folly. I don't want to ever see anything happen to it. I think it is part of Kernersville that we need to stay with and to grow and promote. And I just thank you and all your help and the workers there that have did such a great job with restoring it and keeping it to the perfection it is now. And I again thank you for your work.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
And I'd like to pick up on what Alderman Penix said. A group of citizens saved the Folly and carried it to a certain point, and then Dale and your staff is doing an incredible job carrying the Folly to the future. I do have to give a shout out to Chris Thompson, because although many of the people on this call have done a lot over the years for the Folly, I think Chris probably hands down has spent the most time on a ladder with a paintbrush and sandpaper in the Folly. So thank you, Chris, for your hands-on work in restoring the Folly over years.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions for any of the nonprofits that presented tonight? Thank you. Thank you, Dale.
Thank you.
All right. We will move on then to item D. So we're back to the agenda on item 2D, consideration of a resolution accepting a grant from the North Carolina Governor's Crime Commission.
Madam Mayor, this is a grant for $17,005. It's to be used for equipment and training focused on school safety. There is no match to that, and we're recommending approval of the grant.
Okay, are there any questions, or do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the acceptance of the grant.
Okay, I have a motion by Alderman Bruce Boyer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll need you to identify your name in the second.
It was me, Chris Thompson.
Okay, Chris Thompson with the second. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hooker, have you got the motion, the second, and the vote?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, the motion passed unanimously. We are to item 2E, consideration of a memorandum of understanding with the City of Winston-Salem Fire Department.
Madam Mayor, I'll cover this briefly, and then Chief Alderman, he covered it in detail at the briefing, but if you have any questions, Chief Alderman is here to answer those. As he said at the meeting, this is a memorandum of understanding between the town of Kernersville, City of Winston-Salem, and it's for reciprocal fire and rescue service, automatic mutual aid support between both those parties. We think this will enhance the support and the efforts between town of Kernersville and the City of Winston-Salem in the areas where it's defined.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of either Mr. Swisher or Chief Alderman? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Alderman Joe Penix. Do I have a second? I think I heard the first second from Mayor Pro Tem Fulton. All right, so I have a motion by Alderman Penix, second by Mayor Pro Tem Fulton. We'll do a roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Penix.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Thompson.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Cruz.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Hooker, have you got the motion and the vote?
Yes, thank you.
All right, we are to item 2F, consideration of an intergovernmental agreement with the Winston-Salem Urban Area MPO. Mr. Swisher?
Madam Mayor, this agreement is for an intersection study for Old Salem Road and Tig Lane. This intersection is one that we get some complaints on from year to year by the citizens in that area. So this study will identify what needs to be done at that intersection. The total cost of the study is $58,000. Our match will be 20% of that, which is $11,600. Be glad to answer any questions you may have. It will not impact the general fund. We have that amount in our Caleb's Creek capital reserve account to use for that study.
Okay, are there any questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Alderman Kenny Cruz. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Alderman Joe Penix. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. We've been going for almost 2 hours. We do have several items left to discuss, including the capital improvement plan. So I would propose that we take a 10-minute recess at this time. How does that sound?
Okay.
All right.
Great.
This meeting stands adjourned. I've got, well, hang on a second. I've got 8:51. It's almost 8:52. So let's say we'll come back at 9:02. This meeting stands in recess.
Madam Mayor, I was just going to say, you didn't want, someone used the word adjourn, but we wouldn't want to say adjourn. We would just want to say recess. So thank you for clarifying that.
All right, the meeting stands in recess. Welcome back to the regular meeting of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. We are to item 2G, which is consideration of an ordinance for budget amendment number 5 for fiscal year 2020-2021. Mr. Swisher?
Madam Mayor, I covered the budget amendment in detail at the briefing, so I won't do that again tonight. But mainly all of the expenditures, I think there are 7 new expenditures. Most of those have an offsetting revenue with those. The biggest one is number 7 in the memo. Is to increase the Special Appropriations Department expenditures for $1.47 million to cover a transfer to the Capital Reserve Fund for future recreation projects. That money, $1.197 million of that comes from the sale of the lease on the tower that the town owned the ground space for down on Grayland Street, and the other $275,000 is from the reimbursement we received from the employee that we had that embezzled money from the town. We combine those two and we will put those in a capital reserve fund for future recreation projects. I think I discussed that with the board. Everyone was in favor of doing that. So that money will be there. It can be moved, of course, if the board decides to do so. It can be moved to another capital reserve fund for another project. The other one that was not on there that we did put on, and it also has offsetting revenue, is in the inspections department. We're recommending that we move forward with the purchase of a new inspection vehicle to replace one of ours. It's about 20 years old. Our inspections revenue this year is beyond what we anticipated and beyond what we budgeted for. It's getting close to exceeding the expenses for the department. And so we need to make sure that we try to keep those expenses in line with the revenue that we raised. So we were recommending spending some of that excess revenue on a vehicle. And then we have some grant purchases in different departments and the construction of a new fitness court over at Civitan Park. That's part of that project that was approved. So be glad to answer any questions the board may have regarding any of the expenditures or any of the revenue.
All right. Are there any questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Alderman Kenny Cruz and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Fulton. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
In favor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hooker, did you get the motion, the second, and the vote?
Yes, thank you.
All right, we are to item 2H, consideration of a resolution adopting the Town of Kernersville Capital Improvement Plan for fiscal years 2021-22 through 2025-26.
Madam Mayor, as I've said in previous years, the town is required to present a capital improvement plan to the Board of Aldermen and to have one adopted every year on a yearly basis. You have that plan before you. It is broken out into 6 categories. We have vehicle, capital outlay, equipment, capital outlay, infrastructure, capital outlay, buildings, capital outlay, transportation, capital outlay, and stormwater capital outlay. So it's actually 7 different categories. We went through, the department heads went through, and I went through and projected what capital we will need in each of the years in this capital improvement plan. As I've said before, and I'll reiterate it again tonight, this does not obligate the board to purchase those capital equipment or any of the capital expenses. Does not obligate you to purchase those in that year that they are in the CIP. That is primarily our best estimate and best forecast of when we will need to make that expense. I can tell you, as it has in the past, that some of these expenses will be moved up in the CIP, and some of them will be moved further back. So it's a good plan, and we do stick to it the best that we can every year. But every year, we don't get everything that's in it. As I've said in the past, we don't have a capital budget. We don't have a capital projects fund unless we set one up specifically for something. But we don't have a capital budget. We just have an operating budget. So it's very difficult to have all these capital projects funded in one year. Again, we do the best we can do, but it is difficult. So we're still required to adopt it. So with that being said, I will be glad to answer any questions the board may have regarding any of the items in the CIP.
Is there a minimum dollar amount of what would be needed to be listed in this, or is it items that are inventoried and can be accounted for that way?
No, sir, there's not a minimum dollar. Most of the equipment and vehicles, things like that, are just replacement vehicles and replacement equipment. So we project those out based on their useful lifespan. And then the other items, infrastructure, buildings, and so forth, that's what we think we'll need moving forward in the future to accommodate the growth of the town and the services that we offer. So there's no minimum dollar amount. It's just what we've projected and what we anticipate needing in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
Okay, I have a motion by Bruce Boyer. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Chris Thompson. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. Keith, did you get the, who made the motion, who made the second?
Yes, thank you.
All right, moving on then to item I, consideration of a resolution regarding a grant application to the North Carolina Division of Water Resources. Mr. Swisher?
This is a follow-up with the grant the Board of Aldermen approved for the town to apply for back in December of 2020. It's in the amount of $100,000. It's for the cost of surveying, design, and permitting for the next phase of the Beeson Creek stream restoration. The resolution just sets out 8 conditions that the town agrees to if the grant is awarded to them. We have reviewed these. We have no problem with these 8 conditions. It's something we would most likely do anyway. So we're fine with that. And we request that the board adopt the resolution.
Are there any questions? Do I have a motion?
I move approval.
I have a motion by Alderman Joe Penix. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Alderman Chris Thompson. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hooker, did you get the motion and the second and the vote?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are to the consent agenda. These matters are considered to be routine by the Board of Aldermen and will be enacted with one motion, with no separate discussion unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the matter will be removed from the consent agenda and considered under the following item. A, approval of minutes for the January 27 briefing meeting. B, approval of minutes for the February 2 regular meeting. C, approval of minutes for the February 2 closed session. Is there anyone who would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Adam, is there anyone who's called in as to this item?
No, ma'am.
Curtis, is there anyone in the courtroom who has an opinion about removing one of these items?
Not if they want to be employed tomorrow.
Well, it can be a board member or citizen, so I think it would also could include staff. So is there any staff member?
They're fine.
All right. John's come on. Did you have anything to add to that? John has turned his camera off.
No, I hit the wrong button. Then I figured I better get back on to save the town manager.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
All right, I've got a motion by Alderman Cruz. Chris, do you want to make a second?
I'll second, thank you.
Okay, I've Alderman Thompson with the second. So Keith, do you have that? Alderman Cruz making the motion, Alderman Thompson with the second.
Yes, thank you.
All right, we'll do vote by roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Boyer?
In favor, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
In favor, thank you. And I stand behind town manager.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. All right. We are to item 5, speakers from the floor. Are there any speakers in the courtroom?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Swisher? Thank you.
No, ma'am.
Mr. Hutchins, are there any callers in?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, we are to town manager's report and miscellaneous. Mr. Swisher.
Nope. So that I will still be gainfully employed tomorrow. I'll be quiet tonight.
Thank you. We appreciate all you do. Item 7 is matters to be presented by the town attorney. Mr. Wolf.
Other than asking that the board consider a closed session for this evening, I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Powell.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, matters to be presented by the Mayor Board of Aldermen. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, would you like to start?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you to Doran. After our briefing the next morning, I went out and several things were taken care of. So thank you for that. Still waiting on CCUC to fix the terrible potholes and just mess on Oakhurst, but that's okay. Thank you for trying. Also, I don't know if this is to Adam or Keith, but I think we need to update the website on our planning and engineering division. It still has Rochelle's name on there. And I know I got an email from Jeff today that we have a new employee in that department. And then also on the planning board, I was looking at that. It's got Margaret as the vice chair, which is actually Luann. So we probably we need to get that updated. And then also, somebody was asking me how they could look up Alderman meetings on our website on the schedule. It looks like it only goes through April. Can we get the remainder meeting dates put up on the website? If you go to May, June, July, they're not there. I just looked while I was sitting here.
I'll check with Beth and have her update that.
Yeah, since we've released the dates, I'd go ahead and get that updated. And that's all I have, Mayor, except, again, big prayers for Officer Hull tomorrow. He's having a very important surgery, so I would just like to make sure we're all saying prayers for him tonight and tomorrow. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Boyer?
Just a further comment on that. I'm just amazed at how this community has rallied behind Officer Hool and the police department. It's so heartwarming and amazing to see how we have come together as a community.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
I'll reiterate what Bruce said and Jenny. The town of Kernersville has always supported one another, and out of this tragedy has come a lot of brotherhood, and it warms your heart to read about it and hear about it and see what happens when our community needs support. And we're praying for Officer Hull tomorrow with his surgery. He seems to be improving every day, and hope tomorrow that continues. So he is in our prayers. That's all I've got, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
They've said it all. Nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
We're just praying for our officer also, and it's so good to hear a lot of people that don't mention our police department or anyone in our town, and for them to see to mention that and to be so considerate and ready to back and to help. I just think it's wonderful, and that just shows what real Kernersville citizens are. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to let the board know that this month is March for Meals for the senior services. It's a celebration of the Meals on Wheels program, and the town will be participating in that effort. And I'm issuing a proclamation on the behalf of the town of Kernersville for March for Meals. Also, we'll be doing a proclamation for tennis in recognition of recent improvements that have been made for the East Forsyth High School tennis facility by an Eagle Scout, Bennett Smoke, with his project, A Place to Rest at the Nest. It's interesting that there's not a lot of national recognition of tennis, although I know it is a very popular sport in Kernersville. In my research, one of the most major recognitions has been President Gerald Ford with a national proclamation in support of tennis. But there seem to not be as many efforts across the United States to recognize tennis, which I find surprising given how popular it is and how important and involved the Kernersville residents who play tennis are in making sure that we take care with our courts and work on improving our courts and that kind of thing when we upgrade park facilities. So just a shout out in March for the sport of tennis. And happy birthday, Kernersville. It's not the way we anticipated kicking off this important celebration of our town's incorporation in 1871 over March 30th and 31st of that year. But in 1871, we probably would have other struggles we were facing. You think about all the things we've heard that got postponed or delayed because of the pandemic in 1818 and 1819. And so I think our plans are resilient and our celebration will be great. And we'll take an entire year to celebrate this birthday. Having 3 children, every now and then when there's been one who's had a party at school and a party at home and then a party visiting grandma, my children have liked extended birthday celebrations. So I think that it'll be a great celebration for our town of this. Again, our prayers, as reflected by the Aldermen and Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, are with Officer Houle and his family, and with the entire Kernersville Police Department. All right. Looks like we have a closed session, but before we do that, is there any further business before the Board of Aldermen tonight? All right. Do have a motion for closed session.
I always get to read this. I'll make the motion. This is Alderman Boyer. It's my understanding, Madam Mayor, that there are certain matters about which our town attorney needs to advise us and which fall within the attorney-client privilege for discussion in closed session. I further understand, Madam Mayor, that the board needs to meet in closed session regarding land acquisition. I therefore move, Madam Mayor, that the board go into closed session to confer with our legal counsel under the attorney-client privilege and to discuss land acquisition, which is permitted under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.1.
Okay, I have a motion for a closed session made by Alderman Bruce Boyer. Do I have a second?
So moved. Second.
Okay, I have a second by Alderman Thompson. We'll do our vote by roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton, this is a vote as to going into closed session.
In favor, thank you.
You're welcome. Alderman Boyer.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. This board is now in closed session. We're returning from our closed session of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. Is there any further business before the board this evening? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Fulton. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Alderman Penix. And as this is a remote meeting, we'll do a roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Fulton.
In favor, thank you. Good night.
Alderman Boyer.
In favor, thank you.
Alderman Penix.
In favor, thank you.
Alderman Thompson.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz.
Thank you, and in favor, and good night.
Good night, everyone.